You're listening to the Yin and Yang Show, a marketing and sales conversation with Lindsay Kelly and Brian Signorelli. Strategic and tactical advice about inbound sales and marketing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Yin and Yang Show. Thank you for joining us. We always do appreciate your ear. I'm Lindsay Kelly, joined as always by my buddy Brian Signorelli. And we have a fantastic guest today. I'm going to let Sig say hi and introduce her because she is fantastic.
Yeah. Hey, Lindsay. I'm glad to see you're back in the she shed today. It's beautiful.
Woo-hoo.
It's great. I'm glad you've reclaimed your throne from your husband, squatting in. I love it. I love it.
Squatting in here, working. I'm like, what are you doing? Get out. I need it today.
So yeah, I'm really excited. I've been hearing some crazy statistics recently about video content. And we have, as a guest with us today, one of my former colleagues, Katie Morrisey, who is now at Wistia, which is, if you don't know Wistia, you have been under a rock, especially if you work in the sales and marketing world. They're everywhere. It's an awesome company. Thrilled to have her on. So, Katie, I'll let you just say hello and, briefly introduce yourself however you'd like. We're going to make you do more if you don't, give enough to get out of the gate here.
Yeah, Brian and Lindsay, thank you so much for having me. And I'm pumped to be on the show. And as Brian said, I used to work at HubSpot before Wistia, and Wistia is a video marketing and hosting company. So really excited to talk video with everyone.
All right. So let's just start right there. Like anyone listening, we have a bunch of people we have business owners on, CEOs, heads of sales, heads of marketing, people who work in sales and marketing. What is a video marketing and hosting software company? What does that mean?
Yeah, so I think people get nervous about having an inbound marketing strategy and then having to create a new video strategy. And they're like, where do I start? There's a couple of different groups of people I speak with. One is, okay, I have this one video on my homepage. Maybe it's an animated video. Maybe it's something that an agency has done for me, just been there for a while. Other companies have a YouTube channel with various videos on it. Maybe it's been up there for a while. Previous marketers have done it, and it's just kind of stale. So the way that you want to think about your video strategy and companies should approach it is really the same way as you're thinking about there's an awareness phase, consideration, and decision. That's exactly the same way as you want to think about your videos, putting different kinds of videos in those different stages. You don't need as many videos on your site as you have blog posts, but just to satisfy people in those different stages of that buyer's journey.
Got it. Okay.
And I like that because, one of the things that we've seen kind of in the world of sales and marketing is that it's getting harder and harder to get people to convert on your traditional white paper download or checklist, or people are more hesitant to give their content information in order to get that type of content. And it's also daunting to look at something with so much text on it. So talk a little bit about kind of what the different stages are of this journey and what you at Wistia have seen, because I know you guys have a lot of stats. With, the length of the video, the styles of the video. There's so many. You guys have some fantastic, I want to call them like white papers, but they're not. Because literally I went and downloaded this, and this was when I was still at a HubSpot agency, and it took me to a long format page, like a web page. It wasn't an actual ebook download that I filled when I filled the form out. And it gave me a little explanation and then a video, and a little explanation and then a video. Talk about that, because that was really fascinating to me.
Is that like a white video?
Yeah, it's a white video.
Is that what it is? Is that what it's called? It's definitely can't be called that.
It's, I don't really know what it's called, maybe a short video, but my favorite example of this is actually the company Moz in Seattle. SEO Moz used to be called, and the creator of the company, Rand, he does this series called Whiteboard Friday.
Love it.
It's my favorite. Not only his haircut, I don't understand it, but I love it.
The mustache. It's the mustache.
It is the mustache. Thinking of growing one out myself, but halfway there. But he does a really good job, and our CEO, Chris Savage, does a really good job of explaining how to get people comfortable in front of the camera. I think that's the one thing that it's kind of like a sales rep. When you listen to your own calls first couple of times, you're like, get me out of this room. This is terrible. I can't believe I sound like that. It's the same exact thing, but it's to just have the subject matter experts speak to that topic. So if you have a technical topic you're speaking with, try to get someone from the technical team in there. If you have a sales topic, try to get a sales rep on there. And it does take a couple of reps, but it really increases the page, the time people spend on the page. As you were saying, Lindsay, you're more likely to click a video than want to read, the Declaration of Independence of a blog post. And it's just a little bit more fun to engage with.
It was definitely more fun. I felt like I was going through a journey to learn, and that it was interesting to me because it was not just me reading about it, but then you showing me, kind of reinforcing the message and educating me. Like, I learned so much by watching that. I think I've downloaded it like 4 times. If you go in your CRM and look for me, I'm there with an old email address. But I kept downloading it because I was like, oh, I want to hold on to this and read it again and again. And I should have just bookmarked the page, which would have been smarter.
So Katie, tell us a little bit about, so there's this one stat that I saw recently, and I want you to either tell me like, yeah, that's actually right, or no, that's crazy, but it's like moving in that direction. I heard some stat recently. I'll have to fact check it or something, or have to look to see the source again, but I feel like it was from a fairly reputable source. I can't remember where. It wasn't from Wistia. It said something like, by the year 2020, 80% of all content being produced online is going to be video. That's nuts if that's true. Can you share any, because what I'm getting at is kind of like, why should people care about video aside from the fact that, like, a bunch of us will slack off and watch YouTube or whatever throughout the day, or, videos on Facebook or wherever we find them, right? So tell us a little bit about, like, one, is that statistic true? If it's not, what is the right statistic? And then, like, anything you want to talk about to kind of impress upon the people the importance of video, today, both today and in the future, for sales and marketing.
I've heard similar stats as well. I think Cisco has done a bunch of them. HubSpot has done a bunch of reports on just how critical video is going to be. And that's one of the reasons I'm at Wistia. But it's really just everywhere. Like, even Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, they all have their own native video platforms. And then they all have that story functionality, which is just quick videos to consume. So whether you realize it or not, you're using video all the time. And it could be in a social app, it could be on a website, but it's really everywhere. So I think that stat is a pretty broad number of, okay, there's a lot of different apps that support video. But some stats I can share from Wistia. So our marketing team did 7 A/B tests to test, okay, video in email. Let's see if that can actually increase the click-through rates. So they tested, okay, let's have a video, let's have a Giphy, let's have an image, and see what actually converts at a higher rate. So they found that having video in your email converted at a little over a 21% higher click-through rate than having an image or a Giphy.
Wait a second. So 21% click-through rate, or 21% higher click-through rate than higher, like what? Okay, got it. That's, I mean, it's still great. It's still a great improvement. I just was thinking like, wow, 21. Yeah. Okay.
So then in sales, we were like, okay, well, we want more meetings. Like, give us some of that. So we do a bunch of different types of video, but one in particular is what we call video voicemails. And so we'll send out quick videos, whether it's, hey, my name is Katie, wanted to introduce myself, or here's an area of opportunity on your site that I wanted to show you and show you that I'm doing research, as opposed to here's this template that I've saved and sent to 500 people. And so we're measuring that. So at the end of the videos, you can put a link. So whether it's Calendly, whether it's a HubSpot meeting link, quick and easy, cheap meeting link. And the sales team saw our click-throughs went from 10% to 42%, which was wild.
Ooh, that's game-changing. I like that.
It was awesome.
And
it is awesome.
Now, who is your target market? Like, what size company is responding to this?
So our target market is anyone between, it's pretty broad. Probably the ideal is between 50 and 200 employees. Okay. Staff wanting to grow, but it's pretty wide, but kind of your standard B2B SaaS business is probably the highest target that we have.
Okay. So you send this this video to get a meeting. What is the next step for the person who receives it? What does that look like?
I'm testing it a couple of different ways. So what I'm finding success with, if I send an email initially, and then I reply to that email with a video. And maybe it's, let's say somebody has a video on their homepage and it's a YouTube video. And at the end, there's 9 different videos that show up. Next thing I know, I'm watching SNL on YouTube.
Right.
So, which I don't hate. My boss doesn't love it, but it's fine for me. But just pointing that out to someone and saying like, hey, I'm actually on your website. I'm doing research. It doesn't take long at all. It shouldn't take longer than you picking up the phone, calling someone, getting through the directory, leaving a voicemail. It should be 90 seconds max. So you had asked initially, what do you see from the length of videos? What do you see performing best? Depends on the type of video. Webinars, obviously longer, but best performing videos are 2 minutes or less. Right after that 2-minute mark, we see engagement drop off pretty significantly.
Okay. And how do you schedule meetings for so they open it, they look at it, and then do you have a link at the end of the video, or is it in the email, or both?
It's in both. So the best performing, when you send the video, the call to action at the end of video comes up and it says, click here to book time with me. So there's 2 highest performing words that we see. The highest performing is actually sign up. So if you say sign up for an inbound marketing assessment or sign up for a coaching call, that sign up term is actually the highest converting term. Second highest is click. So click here to talk, click here to connect. So we'll play around with those 2 different languages, but the ideal scenario is if someone watches a video and books a meeting, that's my ideal scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
No, I was gonna say, and you guys have a tool? Is it Soapbox? Is that what you guys are using?
Correct. So Soapbox is a free Chrome extension that allows you to share either your face and or your screen at the same time. So this will allow you to put that call to action at the end of the video. In next month, we're actually releasing an activity and alerts section of it, so you can see video engagement in that product. So right now it's just send, record. I'm actually tracking clicks through our HubSpot meeting or HubSpot sales tool. So if they open it, if they click it, that's how I'm gauging it right now. But you will actually be able to see those statistics at the end of March.
Okay, so that's pretty cool. So you can sit there and you can have one half of the screen be your face saying, hey, Bob, I looked at your website and I see on here, and then showing a screen share on the other side so he can see what you're talking about. That's really engaging for somebody. I mean, and that's very personal.
It's extremely personal. And I heard something, so I follow John Barros, who is a sales trainer. He's from Boston. But it's almost scary how replaceable sales reps can be with AI. He was saying it's getting to a point where I don't know if an email is coming from a robot or if it's coming from a person. So I don't think email is bad, but I think we just need to prove that we do provide value in this process. And this is a way to do that.
And you know what, just to kind of add to that, and this is outside of video, but if you're sending as a marketing team, because again, I'm the marketing arm, Sig is the sales arm. If you're sending something that's like a marketing automation workflow that you've set up, when I first started with this company, everything was coming from, marketing or communications . And I'm like, it's just a big red flag to say this is a marketing spammy email. So we just did a test and it was fantastic because exactly what I wanted to happen has happened. We're getting more opens because we made an alias email address for somebody who was part of a webinar, and people are actually replying to him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, you know what? Actually, this part of the webinar, I had a question on. Like the marketing team is going, what do we do? Because it's a global company. It's something we're not used to, but it was so much more personal for the people who were in attendance and who had registered but missed it. Somebody was like, thank you so much for remembering to send this to us. I missed it. I got caught in a meeting. I'm really excited to be able to watch this. And I had another question too. And so it's just like, I'm sure the sales guy who is, I think in Germany, I don't even know where he is kind of like, whoa, I've never had this before. But it's amazing when you take a step back and think of how you as a person would want to receive something. And you gave me a brilliant idea, because as I go and I'm going to now clone that workflow and I've got people I can send this webinar to, I'm going to chunk out a piece of that webinar, like the most valuable piece, because people are commenting on this one piece, and I'm going to show like 30 seconds to a minute of it. Yep. And then I'm going to say, want to watch the rest of it? Click here.
I think one of the most interesting things that somebody pointed out to me, I think it was, I don't know if you ever come across Derek Wazinski. We're going to have him actually on as a guest in a couple of weeks. He's on the West Coast. He's all over LinkedIn. He's like very futuristic about sales and AI and being a more modern seller. And he made this point one day to me, and I think it actually might have been in the last, he guest wrote the last chapter in the book that I wrote. And he said something like, why do we sell the way that we don't buy? And I thought it was such a, like, the English doesn't quite work, but like, it's such a good point. Like, why do we sell the way we don't buy? Why do we market the way that we don't communicate, right? Like, we send these emails with an alias, but I think a good example would be, at work, a marketer sends a piece of like targeted direct mail, but we go home and we call that same piece of mail junk mail, right? Or at work in sales, we go out and we do our prospecting calls, but at home, those are basically, telemarketers and cold calls that we look at our phone and we're like, even if it's a local number, I'm like, no effing way am I picking up that call. No way. I literally get the same call from some random number in Waltham every single night. I don't even trust that it's in Waltham. And Lindsay, the Waltham's a town not far outside of Boston. Anyway.
Okay, yeah,
I digress.
Not just me, for the rest of the world that listens to this, they're not all in Boston.
Yes, exactly. I digress from that. But anyway, excellent point. One thing I was also thinking about, as I'm just kind of listening to listening to both you kind of talk about video, I started to get anxious. I started to think like I'm getting like anxiety about creating videos, and I'm wondering if I'm the only one. Like, and I'd imagine that, because one of the thoughts that goes through my mind is, well, if I create video, it has to be good and I can't screw up. And, the nice thing about email is I can kind of hide behind, I can spend time drafting stuff, or blog posts, same thing. I'd imagine that you deal with that sort of anxiety or fear on a fairly regular basis, Katie. So can you talk a little bit about maybe getting over that fear, or kind of what is considered an acceptable quality level of a video by today's standards?
Yeah, Sig, I didn't get this jacked by not going to the gym and lifting weights a bunch of times. It's the same concept. It's the same concept. So for me, before Wistia, I used to put a piece of paper over the camera on my calls and say, all right, camera's broken. Blatant lie, but I didn't want to share my face. I wasn't comfortable. And so that was the first thing for me, is saying, okay, I'm at a video company. I need to practice what I preach. I know it works. So the first thing I did was on Zoom, on whatever meeting tool you're using, I turned on my camera. I said, I'm comfortable with this platform. Let me get comfortable on this first. And it actually opened up a whole bunch of opportunities, in that I could say, hey, looks like you're a reader. What books have you read recently? Because I see that you're in front of a library. And it's better than, so you're in Florida, Lindsay. How's the weather? It's just so much better of a conversation, and they feel like they know you. And whether they turn theirs on or not, sometimes that can feel awkward if you're the only one there, but it forces you also to focus. You're not creeping Instagram. You're not doing something else while you're on the call. You're paying attention to the phone call. So that was the first step for me. And then second step would be just reps. They call me One Take Kate, because I'll be on recording a video, and if I sneeze or something really dramatic, maybe I'll re-record, but it's almost better to just be more authentic. And if you mess up, if you stumble a word, so what? That's what makes it human. If you're reading off a piece of paper, that sounds terrible.
Right. I think that, somebody mentioned that to me early on. I think it was when I was a HubSpot customer, actually, 2010, 11 timeframe. And I think I was trying to explain, you find this funny, like I was trying to explain the concept of blogging and why it was important. And my business partners at the time were like, oh, that's going to take a lot of time. And like, we're going to hire a proofreader to make sure there's no typos and all that stuff. And then I think it was John Marcus and Mike Redboard were my reps. Well, Redboard was my inbound marketing consultant at the time. And John Marcus not at HubSpot, but he was my rep. And he's like, no, like that's okay in blog posts. Like it actually shows a bit of authenticity. And it sounds like, I mean, is that kind of what you're saying, Kate, that, it's okay to be human in a video and not have it like perfectly polished?
100%.
Okay. Got it. So I guess the other thing I was kind of thinking in that same vein was just more about the time to produce video. And so again, I mean, I know that, like you said, hey, I'm one take Kate. That's great. I'd love to be one take Sig, on the video marketing component of things, or video sales component of things. But for some reason, I have this thought in my head that like creating video is complicated, or it's harder to do than even writing blog content, which I don't know, even as I'm saying it out loud, sounds like maybe it doesn't make sense. So can you tell me a little bit about how much effort and energy maybe creating video requires, either in comparison to writing content or other formats of content that you've seen? I mean, you're super experienced with this and you talk to people about it all day. Like what's working? How long do things take? What are some effective ways to kind of manage time when you're creating that video content?
It's going to be different whether you're creating a sales video or a marketing video. So sales video doesn't have to be polished, really casual, takes no time at all. Marketing, my vision was, when I came to Wistia, I was like, oh, they must have this ginormous studio, must be super serious. I can't imagine what it looks like. And we have a DIY studio kit on our website. And basically you can create your own studio for $200, $300. It doesn't take a big investment. And it's almost better to do some videos in a studio setting and then just some around your office. People want to see where you work. People want to see what it feels like. And I think that's it, just switching it up. And I had this conversation with our CEO. I was like, can you tell me how basically the video strategy has changed since 2006 to now? And he was saying, in the beginning, it was just me. And I was embarrassed. We were in somebody's like living room in Lexington, Massachusetts, which is a little bit north of Boston. He was like, I was embarrassed to have people see where we were and see how small of a company we were at that time. But he was like, it was the human part. People would write into us and say, they feel like they know us. They would use our names. They would be like, hey, Chris, like, this was awesome. He was like, I felt like I knew them. And then I hired this one guy to help us with video. Basically just knew how to run a camera, knew how to record things, make people smile. And that's it. Our video team now is 2, sometimes 3 people. It's not this gigantic production company. It's really being in front of a camera, light, being happy, talking about your topic, being upbeat, and it's not as hard as you think. It does take practice, but it really is. It's the thought of it is worse than it's like when you get a syllabus the first day of class. Like, oh my gosh, look at how much work I have to do. And you're like freaking out. And then you take it step by step and it's really not that bad.
Good. I think that's good encouragement and good reminders that, just like you said, you didn't get so buff, not going to the gym every day. You gotta practice and you gotta, build the muscle and kind of get comfortable in front of the camera. It's kind of funny that you say that, because I even though we're literally doing a video right now, and we're on Zoom every single week, like I don't actually think of it as being on video. I definitely will say that I have to pay attention very closely because, if I'm like looking at like the phone or like kind of looking off to the side or something like that, you get caught in it. But I also appreciate that it brings that level of focus. So yeah, I think that's some great advice.
So what are some of the challenges, Katie, that you come across when sales reps come to you and they're like, we think that this would be a really great tool for us to use here, but my boss just won't buy it. He doesn't think it's going to work, or, she doesn't think it's going to work. How do you overcome some of those obstacles and challenges?
Yeah. So do you mean for marketing or for sales or for both?
For both, really. I mean, like it's gotta be, I imagine it's a little easier for marketing. But for sales, it's like, why on earth would I let my sales reps
Yeah.
talk on a video and send that out. Like,
I'd love to hear some of the objections you hear both in the sales world and in the marketing world, because I'm sure you get them on both. But I do think Lindsay, you're spot on that. Like
I'm thinking
probably,
about going to like the global like chief sales officer of my company and going, I think that your guys all should do video. And he'd be like, first of all, like, yeah, I don't even have cameras. I don't even know where half these guys are around the world. Like, what, like, what are the objections that you hear? And then what are the answers that you have to help them get through that?
Sure. I think one of the sad ones I hear is my reps have radio faces. They're not really good for
oh man.
You have a face for radio.
I'm so tempted to ask you which company said that, but I'm gonna not.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't do it. But I think that's that's a tough one. And again, it goes back to this human element. Giselle is not selling your product, nor do people expect your team. So I think that's the first thing is it doesn't matter. Like that should be a non-issue. The other one that's probably the most common is I have a couple of reps who are open to doing it, but a lot of them just don't even want to be in front of a camera. They have zero interest. And for us, that was definitely the case. There were a couple of us that were really into it and a couple that were like, nah, I'm not turning this thing on. The thing that helped the most was the responses that we would get back. I've never seen, even if it's a no, they're the most positive no's that I've seen. Mm-hmm. And we think everyone's doing this because we're doing it. But in reality, not many people are doing it at all, which I'm hoping it'll get to a point where everyone is and we'll need something new. But right now, not that many people are doing it. So we use Slack internally and we have a sales channel. And we would just screenshot, whether you do it in your email, whether you do it in your Slack, whatever you have, screenshotting those responses and sending them to the team. Salespeople are typically pretty competitive and saying like, look at this response I got, or like, this was the most positive no, or this was the most positive yes. I'll even get responses. I'm reaching out to marketers typically, and they'll say, Kate, this was awesome. Would love to book time. I've also forwarded this email to my sales team. I want them to adopt this as well. So I think the getting in front of the camera is probably the biggest objection I get. And it really, you do need a couple of reps and folks to adopt it initially, and they will start seeing responses. It's not magic sauce. It's not you send 2 and you're going to get 2 enterprise deals, but they're the most positive responses I've received.
No, that's great. And I want you guys to all take a step back and consider this. At one point in time, people were selling things without a telephone. Mm-hmm. And so now we're at a point in time where I can see inside the next decade, it's like cold calling. It's part of the job. You want to do this, you need to show yourself. You need to be engaged with somebody and creating a video that's helpful, not just using a script and picking up the phone, because it doesn't work. It's like Brian said, he's not going to answer that call from wherever in Massachusetts.
Waltham.
Yeah, thank you. But hey, if I open an email and there's a video there, think about like what that would do for your company being first to market with that. All of a sudden your sales reps are hitting up, especially in commodity based sales. I mean, everybody is trying to sell you a widget. Mm-hmm. If you're the first person to come on camera and look that person in the eye and say, let me show you some things that this widget has helped other people do really quick in 30 seconds, slam dunk.
I think what's interesting too is that like kind of what was old is now new again. And the main difference that I think I see is, so obviously this is basically video is like, it's a form of face-to-face meeting, right? The difference though, or maybe one of the key differences is that it still allows the buyer to be in control, where they're not like picking up a call and being forced into a conversation that might not be at a good time. So they can kind of have that in-person experience without actually being interrupted throughout their day. And I think the other side of it too is like, as I'm just kind of like thinking about this, like when you say stuff, Kate, that's like, hey, my email click through and open rates went from like 10% to 42%. There's not a sales rep on the planet who wouldn't want that. I mean, if I were going into a head of sales, the first thing I'd say is, how's connecting with prospects going these days? And I guarantee, I think you'd be hard pressed to find any head of sales. It's like, oh, it's great. Like connecting with prospects is super easy. Like hasn't ever been easier in our whole existence as a company. It is super easy to get people to pick up the phone and respond to email. There's not a single sales leader, sales manager, sales rep who would say that with a straight face. They're all looking for different ways to kind of increase that engagement, increase that response. And I think it's interesting too, Kate, that you point out that, hey, look, hopefully we'll get to a point where everyone's adopted this and we'll have to figure out some other new strategy to kind of, earn people's attention and interest. But right now, I mean, it sounds like there's a hole the size of a Mack truck, that you can fit a Mack truck through to, that's wide open right now. If you're in sales, to start at least testing and experimenting with video. Because I know I definitely want my team to have 40+% opening click-through rates. That's for sure.
Right.
Should we call it inside outside sales?
Yes, I love that. Like inside out, upside down sales or something. Inside, outside, inside sales. Or outside, inside, outside sales. Yeah.
Every day on the Yin and Yang show.
Yeah, it's like it's crazy.
Well, even, you and Scott Brinker came up with insight marketing or something.
Oh, that was Matt Dixon. Insight selling. It's the new thing. I'm all about this.
Insight.
Like I'll send you the blog post.
Send me a video.
Yeah, that's right. I sent you a video about it. Like saying, shut up, no blog post. Send me videos. Like I work at Wistia. What the hell?
I don't read.
Yeah.
I don't read, I watch.
Exactly. That's something I did want to ask you about. I have seen a few, LinkedIn, for example, now has the ability to create your own videos, right? And I've seen a handful of people, not a handful, a lot of people actually, creating their own videos. And then I saw somebody post something to the effect of like, yeah, I tried this LinkedIn video thing, and then I kind of realized that like I wasn't watching any of these videos myself. So why should I believe that anyone else is going to watch a video? Have you heard any of that? Or is any objection? And I guess maybe more specifically, what I'm asking there is, does video tend to resonate better with a certain type of person in a certain function or certain seniority level better than others?
It depends on the goal of the video. So I actually posted my first LinkedIn video yesterday to try it out. I was like, I'm getting bombarded. We are a video company. Let me try this.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends on what you're trying to do with the video. So if your video is for brand awareness, you're going to want to upload it natively to those video platforms. So Facebook's going to prefer its own, LinkedIn, Twitter, they're all going to prefer their own video platforms. If the goal of your video is to drive that traffic back to your site, you can use another platform like a Wistia, because that's going to play on your website where it's living. So I think executives actually do tend to prefer video because they typically have less time. So if they're trying to consume information, a quick video is actually pretty good for them. The other thing is video will also increase the time that people are spending on your page because they're dedicating that time to the video. So again, it depends. I think I like LinkedIn video. I've actually watched a few and received some tips. I think sometimes it can be a lot. I think you have to be careful to not flood everyone's feed aggressively, but right. I think I have learned a few things from it, and it's easy to digest. Am I going to, it depends. Like I'm not going to purchase probably a product from it, but I'm going to learn a couple of things, and that's my goal.
Yeah, when you learn, you're building trust and you're educating somebody, and they're going to dive deeper. So that's a good point.
Right. So, Kate, what I want to wrap up with, because we're coming up to the end of our time here, is something that we do kind of on every episode. Well, at least the last 5 episodes, maybe not all of them. But we like to kind of reflect a little bit and think about the past, present, and future, or at least the present and the future, if you don't want to go into the past. But one thing I'm kind of curious, and I think that anyone listening might be curious to hear more about, is, can you kind of give us your thoughts and your opinions on, where has video been, where is video today, and where do you think video might be going over the next, say, 2 to 5 years, something along those lines? Like help people wrap their minds around video as a sales tool, as a marketing tool, and kind of a tool to grow your business, more broadly speaking. Whichever points you want to touch on there is great.
Yeah, a video for sales has really been non-existent. Marketing, this goes into your question, Lindsay, about the challenges, the pushback I get. YouTube, been around forever and it's free. So I think that's been the platform of the past, and YouTube is good. You should definitely have a website video strategy and a YouTube strategy. They're different. YouTube's more of a social channel. So YouTube wants you to stay on YouTube, which is fine. You want to think about your YouTube strategy as more like your blog strategy. So really digestible, 5 tips to do XYZ, that type of video. For your website, it's going to be a little bit different. Do I put webinars for lead gen? Do I put introductions to the people in my company? It's just a little bit different. So I think people are moving to more embedded videos on their site to keep people there as opposed to push them elsewhere. But it is kind of tough to say. I've been using this free platform. It's fine. I can't really track much, but it's free. I think that kind of goes into the pushback piece.
Right.
For the future of video, I think the market changes so quickly that I don't think content marketing is going anywhere. So I think that video is just, again, a part of that content strategy. So it really should be, again, using it in the same way as you're using blog posts. Again, you don't have as many, but it's really just an additional piece of content. I think I'll be curious to know how it integrates with a lot of these like bots that are coming out. So a lot of these like website chat bots and those types of things. I'll be curious to see how video integrates with that type of a product. So I think that might be more the future, but I think content marketing, I think video marketing, I don't think they're going anywhere. I think they work pretty well together.
And then, well, I guess last thing before we kind of do a formal wrap up, opportunities that you think people are missing out on today, that you think they're kind of being foolish for not paying attention to, like whether it's on the sales side, marketing side, both, maybe like one for each, or whatever you're comfortable with.
I think the area of opportunity is actually expanding video to different parts of your team. Support, for instance. If someone wants to walk through a support issue, sometimes it's actually easier to just share your screen and show that problem. Or recruiting. If a recruiter reaches out to you, you probably get 8 million emails a day. Same thing with sales. But if a recruiter reaches out to you and say, hey, Lindsay, hey, Brian, I thought you'd be an awesome fit for this opportunity. Here's why. You might be a little more likely to click on that. So I think marketing understands video. Sales is starting to understand video, but also we don't have to leave these other folks out. I think there's a lot of opportunity to expand video into different platforms. Training, super scalable. You have a couple of videos, you just, play them every time you have a new hire class, or there's a lot of opportunity outside of marketing and sales, I think, that we could also get into.
I think that's great. That's great. Yeah. Think beyond marketing. I think it's true. I think there's like this misconception or preconceived notion that videos for marketing, that's where it gets produced and it's creative and whatnot. But I think especially even with platforms like, well, obviously with Wistia, but I mean, even the fact that we're on Zoom right now and that we're having like a video podcast, I think it's just becoming more normal. And I do think that, I think it's awesome that you pointed out that this is something that's starting to get more broadly adopted. And this frankly could be a really great competitive edge if you work in the sales world. And frankly, especially, man, if you work in recruiting or you work in support, those are some of the functions you want to be the most human in. I think it's an awesome opportunity to engage in a more meaningful way with potential candidates that want to learn more about your company and understand what the people are like. Or, I mean, certainly anybody who's a current customer is having issues with your products or services, being able to do that. And then, obviously being able to reuse that, because as much as we love, whichever issue comes up or person has it, like odds are it's not a one-off thing. It's something you can reuse over and over again. So it's scalable, as we like to say in the software world or the startup worlds, and so on and so forth. So, look, Kate, it's been great having you on. I'm not going to hijack our conclusion because Lindsay does the conclusion of the show every day. So Lindsay, take it away.
All right. Well, Katie, if people want to reach out and connect with you online, what is the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. You can just find me, Katie Morrisey, and Wistia is wistia.com. That's our homepage. And then Soapbox is our free tool for sales. So feel free to check that out as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. Really enjoyed that. That was some great insight into video and how to really differentiate yourself. And folks, you can always find Sig and I on the Twitters. I'm at LV Kelly with an EY. He is at Inbound Seller. And folks, until next time, keep the conversation going.
Yeah, keep talking.
You've been listening to the Yin and Yang Show, a marketing and sales conversation with Lindsay Kelly and Brian Signorelli. Join us online at yinandyang.fm.